First up, we are making protein-packed Tenshinhan. It's like a super popular Japanese egg dish with this addictive sauce of fluffy eggs. But we are doing a protein-rich version this time. So first, let's get the stuff ready that we are gonna mix into the rice. I kinda felt like adding onion this time, but you can totally skip it and just use chicken if you want. Dice the onion and cut the chicken into small pieces after removing the skin. Since we are mixing it with the rice, smaller is better. Makes it easier to eat. Heat a little oil in a pan and throw in the onion. Normally, you don't season the rice for Tenshinhan, just use plain white rice, but flavoring it like this is way tastier. And adding a ton of chicken is a great way to load up on protein, you know? Medium heat is good for getting it fragrant faster. When the onions are kinda soft, toss in the chicken. Add sake and soy sauce to the chicken. Sake can really help get rid of any funky smells in food, and it brings out the yumminess and richness. But you can skip it or use white wine instead if you like. Then add some salt and pepper too. Mix it up real good. This is fine as is, but I like to add some Shantung. It's my favorite stock powder to make it even more flavorful. We don't want it to be watery when we mix it with the rice, so cook it down until the liquid's gone. Take it off the heat and mix it with the cooked rice. Oh, and I looked it up, and apparently there's this famous chain restaurant in Japan that does Tenshinhan with fried rice. It's pretty rare, but it was kinda like my idea. I wanna try making a fried rice version next time. Next up, the super important sauce. This is what goes over the eggs at the end. Get a pan or a saucepan ready. Don't turn on the heat yet though. Add water, sake, soy sauce, sugar, potato starch, rice vinegar, Shantung or your favorite stock powder, and oyster sauce, and mix it up. Make sure you don't turn on the heat yet. Mix it really well until the potato starch is totally dissolved. Set this aside for a bit. We'll heat it up after we cook the eggs. Put the rice in a bowl. I like to add some shredded cabbage to bulk it up and cut down on the amount of rice. We are going all out and using 2 eggs this time. For Tenshinhan, you really want to use real crab, but we are gonna use imitation crab sticks. I think most people use imitation crab for Tenshinhan at home anyway. I recommend shredding them like this. It makes it easier to make fluffy eggs and it mixes better with the eggs. We are not adding any seasoning to the eggs since we are making the sauce later. Heat a tiny bit of oil in a non-stick fry pan. I always use non-stick for this. Pour in the eggs. Turn the heat to high and stir it around with chopsticks. It'll start to set really fast, so when it's about this consistency, turn off the heat and let it cook in the residual heat. I managed to make runny, soft eggs, but it was so hard to put them in the bowl without them falling apart. I kinda fixed it though. Finally, let's heat up the sauce we prepped and thicken it. The potato starch might have settled a bit, so make sure you stir it again before you turn on the heat. Once you are sure it's mixed well, turn on the heat. Bring it to a boil and heat it for about a minute. And keep stirring so it doesn't get lumpy. This is a slightly tangy and rich sauce. Some regions add a little ketchup to make it a redder sauce, but I grew up with this kind. Sometimes people add shrimp, pork, or bamboo shoot to this sauce, but we kept it super simple and easy this time. After you turn off the heat, add a tiny bit of sesame oil if you want. It makes it even more flavorful. Pour it over the eggs and add some green onion on top. And you are done. My husband loved it and said it was even better than regular Tenshinhan. Alright, next up, we are making protein-packed Butadon. Buta just means pork, so get ready for a crazy good pork bowl. And we are keeping it healthy and high protein with pork fillet this time, plus we are throwing in some broccoli. Seriously, the way this pork is seasoned with the broccoli, it's a killer combo, you gotta try it. So wash your broccoli real good. Chop it into bite-sized pieces and we'll cook it separately from the pork later. Thinly slice the pork fillet. Of course, you can use whatever cut of pork you like. Fillet is the leanest, so it's healthier, but using something like pork loin with a bit more fat will make it even richer and tastier, I think. Now let's make the miso marinade in the dish. Miso, I'm using one with dashi in it already, but use whatever miso you dig. Then add sake, mirin, beet sugar syrup. You can totally swap this out for sugar or honey. Soy sauce, and grated ginger. Mix it all up real good. This miso marinade is actually awesome on tons of stuff. You can marinate chicken or other meat in it, and it's great with fish too. Throw in the pork slices you just cut up. Flip them over to get the marinade all over and let it sit for a bit. The pork is thin, so you don't need to marinate it for long. While that's soaking up the flavor, let's get the broccoli going. I'm using some garlic that I minced and soaked in olive oil. The sprout on the garlic started to grow like crazy, so I whipped this up to preserve it. It's so good with the broccoli, it's perfect. How do you guys store garlic when you wanna keep a bunch of it? I thought about freezing it, but I was worried it would make the whole freezer stink, so I tried soaking it in olive oil and keeping it in the fridge. I did a little digging, and apparently the garlic we get here is more prone to sprouting, while they treat the stuff in the US to prevent it. You can dip broccoli in the miso marinade, so I'm just keeping the seasoning simple with salt and pepper. The pork's looking good, all marinated up, so let's throw it in a pan and cook it. Just a little bit of oil in the pan. Scrape a little of the miso marinade off the pork so it doesn't burn as easily. We'll simmer the marinade separately later. Since the meat's thin, like 2 minutes on each side should be enough. You want it to be brown. Once the pork's cooked through, take it out of the pan. Pour all that marinade in there and heat it up. Keep stirring while it simmers. When it's reduced a bit and gotten thicker, you are good to go. You can cool this miso marinade down, stick it in the fridge, and use it as a dip for roasted veggies or veggie sticks. Now let's make the bowl. Put some cabbage and rice in the bowl. Cabbage is totally optional, of course. Fry on the meat. Put the broccoli in the middle. And drizzle with the sauce. The perfect Butadon is ready. Alright, next up is protein-packed Mapo tofu don. First thing first, we gotta drain the tofu, and we are gonna do it in the microwave this time. Wrap the tofu in paper towels and put it in the microwave. This block of tofu is 130 grams, so I'm heating it for about a minute and a half at 500 watt. Now let's make the Mapo tofu sauce. Throw in some sweet bean sauce. If you don't have it, miso works fine. And put soy sauce, sake, oyster sauce, dobanjin, and sugar. Mix it all up real good. Sweet bean sauce is kind of like a miso-ish seasoning, but it's got soy sauce and sugar in it too. It's perfect for Mapo tofu and it adds a mellow richness and sweetness, but miso works just fine as a substitute. The tofu's all warmed up, so let's fry the meat. I'm using that garlic-infused olive oil I used before. It's super handy for all kinds of cooking. Add some minced ginger too. I thought it needed a little more oil, so I'm adding just a tiny bit of sesame oil. That's really boosts the flavor. I'm using ground chicken breast this time. It was frozen, so it was a pain to break up. I microwaved it a bit, but it wasn't warm enough, so it's still solid. I added some sake to help break it up. Ground pork with a bit of fat is the classic meat for Mapo tofu. But you can totally make it tasty with healthy chicken breast. Add some minced green onion. Then add the sauce we made earlier. Mix it lightly, fry it up. And then add water. Simmer it while mixing. By the way, Mapo tofu is originally a Chinese dish, but the Japanese version has evolved so much that it tastes totally different from the Chinese one. Japanese Mapo tofu isn't usually very spicy, but if you like it hot, you can add chili peppers or other spicy seasonings here. Add the tofu that we warmed up and drain a bit. I think it's good to roughly cut it up with chopsticks. I went with a version where the tofu's not too small. Mix it gently so the soup soaks into the cut surfaces. Simmer it until the soup has reduced by about half. Get a teaspoon of potato starch ready. Mix it with twice as much water. Pour it into the pot. Stir it well and cook over medium-high heat for about a minute. Taste it and add more soy sauce or sugar if you need to. Again, I'm adding some cabbage to make it healthier. Put the rice in the bowl. Pour it on the Mapo tofu. I want you guys to enjoy this special Mapo tofu bowl with extra protein. Add some green onion and chili shreds for a little color, and you are done. Alright, next up we are making protein-packed katsu curry don. This time we are whipping up an easy, healthy katsu to make it extra protein rich. For veggies, we are using onion and carrot. What veggies do you guys usually put in your curry? I usually add potatoes, but we are skipping them this time since we are loading up on meat. I'm cutting the onions small so they melt down nicely even with the short cooking time. And I cut the carrot into flower shapes. You can put all kinds of veggies in curry, you know? Eggplant, lotus root, broccoli, anything goes, I think. And for the meat in the curry, we are using chicken. I took the skin off and chopped it into bite-sized pieces. Chicken, pork, beef, you can make a tasty curry with any of them. But what's your favorite meat to use? This is pork fillet. I could put this in the curry too, but we are gonna use it for the katsu. Let's slice it thin. We are making a small amount of curry this time, so I'm using a small pot. Add a little oil in the pot and fry the onion until they are soft. Add the carrots and fry those too. Once the onions are kinda soft, we'll fry the meat. But here's the secret: fry the meat with garlic. It makes the curry way more delicious. And here it is again, that garlic-infused olive oil. It's so handy. Fry the meat so the garlic coats everything. Once the chickens mostly change color, add water and bring it to a boil over medium heat. When it boils, skim off the scum with the ladle. Then simmer on low heat for about 20 minutes. While that's simmering, let's make the healthy katsu. I've realized lately that you can totally get the katsu vibe with this healthy version without using a ton of panko and oil. Sprinkle both sides of the meat with salt and pepper. Then lightly spread a batter made of equal parts flour and water on one side. Sprinkle panko on here. I was trying to put panko on the sides and accidentally got some on the other side. Put about a tablespoon of oil in a fry pan and place the panko side down to cook. Cook for 2 to 3 minutes until the panko is nicely browned. Then flip it over. Cook the other side for 2 to 3 minutes too. When you cook it with this little oil, there's hardly any splattering, which is awesome. The katsu is done, so let's finish the curry. I'm using golden curry roux. Use the amount of roux recommended on the package. I've been getting more sensitive to spicy food lately, so I'm using a mild curry. What's your favorite brand of curry roux? Golden curry is pretty popular overseas, isn't it? Add the curry roux, dissolve it completely, and simmer on low heat for about 5 minutes. It can burn easily, so you should stir it pretty often. That's it, the chicken packed curry is done, so let's spread it up. I put cabbage under the rice again, pour on the curry. Then add the katsu. Add an egg for even more protein. Pour the curry over the katsu and it's perfect. Alright, next up is a Tatsuta-Age Donburi with a Japanese-style mustard sauce. Peel the skin off the chicken and cut it into bite-sized pieces. Sprinkle both sides with salt and pepper. Tatsuta-Age is pretty similar to karaage, but unlike karaage, which sometimes uses flour or egg, Tatsuta-Age uses only potato starch. Also, Tatsuta-Age is often seasoned with soy sauce and mirin, but I wanna eat this with my favorite Japanese-style mustard sauce, so I'm just using salt and pepper for the seasoning. Get your potato starch ready and coat the chicken well. Tatsuta-Age is usually made with a thick coating of potato starch for crispy crust, but if you wanna cut calories, use less potato starch and coat the chicken super thinly. I always use this Thai-hack sesame oil for frying. Unlike regular dark sesame oil, it doesn't have a strong smell. It's resistant to oxidation and can withstand high heat, and I think it tastes way better than frying with vegetable oil. My husband asked for a Tatsuta-Age Donburi, so I'm frying it, but if you want a healthier version, like I said, coat the chicken very thinly with potato starch and pan fry it with about a tablespoon of oil. Fry for 2 to 3 minutes per side. When both sides are nicely browned, it's done. Now let's make the sauce. Get some whole grain mustard ready. I'm aiming for a honey mustard sauce with a Japanese twist. Add beet sugar syrup. Honey works too. Water, sake, and soy sauce. Mix it well. I was gonna heat this in the microwave, but I thought it might thicken better if I simmered it in a fry pan. Put it in the pan and heat it up while stirring. It doesn't seem to be thickening much, so I added a little potato starch mixture. Potato starch mixed with water. Add it bit by bit until you get your desired thickness. Heat for about a minute after adding potato starch and you are done. Put plenty of cabbage on top of the rice. Add the Tatsuta-Age and pour on the mustard sauce. It's a little tangy and goes perfectly with the chicken. Garnish with green onion and you are done. Alright, last but not least, we are making Yaki Gyudon. Usually when I make gyudon, I make a soup in a pot and simmer it, but today we are making Yaki Gyudon, which you can whip up in a flash. The ingredients are simple: onions and a little garlic and ginger. I recommend using garlic and ginger to get rid of any distinct meat smells. Put a little oil in a fry pan, throw everything in and fry it up. Garlic and ginger burn easily, so you might want to add them at the same time as the meat. Since we don't have time to simmer today, I think it's a good idea to fry the onion until they are fairly soft at this stage. When the onions are a little soft, make some space and add the beef. We're gonna add the seasonings, so turn off the heat for now. For gyudon, you gotta have thinly sliced beef like this. If you can't find thinly sliced meat, I heard that if you freeze a block of meat and then slice it thinly while it's half thawed, it works well. The meat was a little big, so I'm cutting it. Add sake, mirin, soy sauce, and sugar. Turn on the heat, mix in the seasonings, and cook the beef through. Fry over medium heat to let the beef soak up all the flavor. Once the meat's cooked, you are done. With Yaki Gyudon, you don't have time to simmer in broth, so if you taste it and think it's a little bland, add a little soy sauce. You can also finish it off with a little salt. And it's even tastier if you drizzle a little of the sauce that's left in the fry pan over the rice. In Japanese gyudon restaurant, there's a way to order called tsuyudaku, where they pour a ton of that flavored broth over it. When you pour a lot of the sauce, the rice gets really flavorful too. Finally, add an egg yolk. Of course, I ate the egg white in the soup. Use whatever kind of egg you like, poached or fried. Garnish with green onion and top it with red pickled ginger, and you are done.